Hi, I'm Ben Harrington. Today we'd like to cover the merits of spring cropping with you. So spring cropping will be actually more and more important. Firstly, what we like to cover is the biggest role of spring cropping in a lot of people's cases is blackgrass control. Now spring cropping can actually give about 80% control in blackgrass. So generally you'll get about a 70 to 90% control, but on average it's 80%. So 80% of blackgrass tends to germinate within the autumn period. So that leaves only a 20% left for spring germination. And at such lower populations you can get much better control. The crops can compete against it, there's less infestations, and you've got different chemical controls which can help you really get on top of that blackgrass problem. So secondly, it gives you a very good time to do stale seed beds. Now this has become more and more important because actually recently we've discovered we've got glyphosate for only 5 more years, and in these situations we're going to have to use these 5 years to get completely on top of blackgrass. So actually if you're going to put spring cropping in, you need to reduce those blackgrass populations, you need to use stale seed beds properly, get on top of those weeds, so then when you don't have something to fall back on, everything's in control and it's nice. So spring cropping. Thirdly, crop margins. Actually, are you going to get more money from growing a spring crop than from spending the money in these situations in winter crops, say winter wheat or on blackgrass? There's people spending easily from 120 up to £200 a hectare. On some of those costs, actually, you getting the money back from it. With spring cropping, you don't have those costs. It's minimal inputs, very short growing periods. You won't have the same issues. So another benefit to spring cropping, it will enable you to also use cover crops or forage crops, and these can help certainly as soil conditioners. It will help improve soil structures. You can help get on top of your weeds, so it will enable you to be able to use glyphosate spray to take out any blackgrass that has developed in them. Otherwise, forage crops like this, you can utilise it. You can have more diversity in the farm, bring in livestock into the rotation, actually earn money in other ways other than arable. It's a very helpful factor there. So cover crops you could be using to grow in the autumn, and then actually use that and develop that as a fertiliser to actually help your spring crops when you put them in the spring. It's a food source. So spring crops also enable extended rotations, so this will help disease and pest management. So certainly when you think about spring cropping, you need to decide actually, do I need 1 year, do I need 2 years, am I on top of my weed problems, is this going to be an issue for disease later on, how can I utilise things where you say grow winter rye and then go into maize. It'll enable you to manage things in a much more flexible manner to get on top of issues without having to spend money on chemical costs. So along with extended rotations, you also will enable yourself to have more crop diversity. It certainly has a big impact on disease management as well, but the more diverse crops you have, you'll have different rooting structures. You can bring in things like legumes, so spring beans, and that will have a big impact on rooting. We're bringing in more residual nitrogen into the system, and how can you utilise things in those rotations as well. So with the extended rotation and crop diversity, you'll also enable yourself to bring in different chemical controls, and certainly with glyphosate for blackgrass control starting to go, you'll have to look to other chemical controls in different crops, and one of the most important ones probably will be maize for blackgrass. You get very good control, and you have to utilise those in your rotations as well, and you have to start thinking more carefully on how can I sort out these issues. How can I reduce them, and which direction you're moving in while making profitable money. So some of the things you need to think about when going into spring cropping, you need to consider actually which crops do you utilise, and that's entirely down to your farm, your system, which crops fit in best for you. Would it be spring barley or do you want forage crops? It's going to be your decision on how that fits in best. Is it chemical control you need? You just need diversity, so legumes, spring beans, bring it in there. And then you can consider, are you growing it for weed issues? So then you need to look at actually, do you need 1 year or 2 years? Obviously, if you have much higher weed pressure, you just think, actually, okay, do I need those 2 years to get the same amount of control when you've got less pressure? And then another thing you need to consider is your margins. Actually, does this spring crop fit in with the rest of your crops? Are you going to make a similar amount of money? You'll need to think about budgeting the least marginal crops with the highest input. Actually, you need to match them up and make sure you're making money. You're not going to lose money, and you're not going to have years that fluctuate one way or another, and they're very important considerations. So this is just a video on the merits of spring cropping, so thank you very much for watching. If there's any more information you need, please do get in touch. We will have further videos stating spring cropping as separate entities, so please stay tuned. Thank you very much.